I should have known something was wrong the moment she ordered my drink before I even sat down. Not just any drink, my drink. The obscure one I invented at 2 a.m. during my sophomore year of college when I couldn't sleep, and mixed whatever was in my roommate's mini fridge. Vodka, elderflower tonic, a splash of pomegranate juice, and exactly 3 drops of lime. I'd never told anyone about it, never ordered it at a bar. It didn't even have a name. But there it was, sitting in front of the empty chair across from her, condensation already forming on the glass like it had been waiting for me. "Ryland," she said, not as a question but as a statement, like she'd known me for years. I froze halfway to the table, my hand still gripping the strap of my messenger bag. The coffee shop suddenly felt smaller, the ambient jazz music too loud, the smell of roasted beans suffocating. She was beautiful in an unsettling way. Dark hair that caught the light like oil spills catch rainbows. Eyes the color of smoke. A smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. She wore a burgundy dress that looked expensive, and her fingers, long and elegant, drummed once against the marble table. "I'm Vesper," she continued, gesturing to the chair. "Please, sit. We have so much to discuss." My dating app hadn't mentioned her name. Just a profile with one photo, slightly blurred, and a bio that read, "Looking for someone who understands that some truths are better left buried." I'd swiped right because I was lonely, and because my therapist said I needed to put myself out there after the divorce. If you're watching this from your corner of the world, drop your location in the comments below. And if you think you know where this is going, hit that subscribe button now, because trust me, you don't. I sat down slowly, not touching the drink. "How did you know what I'd want?" "The same way I know about the scar on your left rib cage," Vesper said, leaning forward. "The one shaped like a crescent moon that you got when you were 9 years old, climbing the fence behind the elementary school to retrieve your best friend's toy plane. The same way I know you told everyone you got it from falling off your bike because you didn't want to get in trouble." The coffee shop tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. "Who are you?" "I told you. Vesper." She took a sip of her own drink, something clear and still. "But the better question is, who are you really, Ryland Thorne? Because the man sitting in front of me isn't the same one who goes to work every day at Mercer and Associates, pretending he believes in corporate law. He's not the same man who lies awake at 3:47 a.m. exactly, 3 times a week, thinking about the choice he made 7 years ago." My mouth went dry. 3:47 a.m. That was my witching hour. The time when the guilt came knocking. When I remembered the night I'd changed everything and everyone's life around me, including my own. "I don't know what game you're playing," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I'm leaving." I started to stand, but her next words pinned me to the chair. "Your brother didn't kill himself, Ryland." Time stopped. The jazz went silent in my ears. The other patrons faded into watercolor blurs. "What did you just say?" Vesper's expression didn't change. "Felix, your twin brother. The official report said suicide by overdose. You've spent 7 years believing you could have saved him if you'd just answered his call that night. If you'd just picked up the phone instead of being angry about the money he borrowed. Instead of being tired of always being his savior." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You don't know anything about Felix." "I know everything about Felix," she corrected gently. "I know he called you 17 times that night. I know you turned off your phone after the 5th call. I know you found him 3 days later in his apartment, and I know you've never forgiven yourself." But here's what you don't know. Felix didn't take those pills. Someone gave them to him. Someone who needed him quiet. I couldn't breathe. The coffee shop was spinning now, a carousel of strangers and steam, and the impossible woman sitting across from me, who knew the shape of my nightmares. "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered. "Because you're the only one who can help me prove it," Vesper said. "And because the same people who killed Felix are coming for you next. They've been watching you for months, waiting to see if you know what Felix discovered before he died. The question is, are you ready to learn the truth? Or do you want to keep living in the comfortable lie you've built?" She slid a manila envelope across the table. It was thin, unmarked, ominous. Inside this envelope is a photograph. One photograph. If you open it, there's no going back. You'll know too much, and knowing will put you in danger. But you'll also finally understand why Felix called you that night, why he was terrified, why he needed his twin, his other half, his mirror. My hand trembled as I reached for the envelope. The paper was cool and smooth beneath my fingers. "Who are you really?" I asked again. This time, Vesper's smile did reach her eyes, but it made her look sadder, not happier. "I'm the person who loved your brother," she said quietly. "And I'm the person who's going to help you destroy everyone who took him from us." I opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, slightly faded, printed on glossy paper. It showed Felix, alive and smiling, standing next to a man I recognized immediately. A man whose face had been on the news just last week, announcing his campaign for mayor. A man who represented everything clean and honest and good in our corrupt city. But in the photo, this man, Vincent Kellaway, had his arm around Felix's shoulders. And in the background, barely visible, was a door marked with a symbol I'd seen before. A symbol that belonged to the organization everyone whispered about, but no one could prove existed. The Meridian Circle. I looked up at Vesper, my heart hammering against my ribs. "When was this taken?" 2 days before Felix died," she said. "He was investigating them. He'd infiltrated one of their meetings, gathered evidence. He was going to expose them, and then suddenly he was gone. Ruled a tragic suicide. Case closed. No investigation. Nothing." I stared at the photograph, at my brother's face, at the smile that didn't know it was 2 days from death. "What did Felix find?" I asked. "Everything," Vesper said. "Money laundering, human trafficking, political corruption that goes all the way to the governor's office. The Meridian Circle isn't just a secret society, Ryland. It's a machine that runs this entire city, and Felix was about to dismantle it." She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was a video, paused on the first frame. I could see Felix's face, serious and scared. "He sent me this the night he died," Vesper said. 14 minutes and 37 seconds of everything he'd discovered. Names, dates, accounts, crimes. It's all there. But I can't use it alone. I need someone they're not watching yet. Someone they think is just a grieving brother who's moved on. Someone who can get close to them. "You want me to infiltrate the Meridian Circle," I said slowly. "I want you to burn it down," Vesper corrected. "From the inside, the same way Felix tried to." I looked at the photograph again, at Felix's smile, at the life that had been stolen from him, from me, from everyone who'd loved him. For 7 years, I'd carried the weight of his death, the guilt of not answering, the shame of being angry when he'd needed me most, the hollow ache of surviving when my twin hadn't. But if Vesper was telling the truth, if Felix hadn't chosen to leave, If he'd been murdered for trying to do the right thing, then everything changed. Then I owed him more than grief. I owed him justice. "Tell me everything," I said, my voice hard now, steady. "Tell me how we make them pay." Vesper's smile turned sharp, predatory. "First, you need to understand what you're walking into. The Meridian Circle doesn't just kill people who threaten them. They destroy them. They dismantle their lives piece by piece until there's nothing left but a shell. And they're very good at making it look natural. Accidents, suicides, sudden illnesses." She leaned closer, and I could smell her perfume, something dark and expensive, like funeral flowers and smoke. "They know things about people, Ryland. Secret things. Things you'd never tell anyone. And they use those secrets as weapons." My blood ran cold. "How do they know?" "That's what Felix was trying to figure out when they killed him," Vesper said. "But I have a theory. And if I'm right, what they've built is more terrifying than anything you can imagine." She stood up, graceful and deliberate, and I realized our meeting was ending. "Wait," I said, standing too. "Where are you going? We need to plan. We need to be careful," Vesper interrupted. "They're probably watching you right now. This coffee shop has 3 cameras, and I guarantee at least one of them is theirs. So we smile, we part ways, and you go home and think about whether you're really ready for this. Because once we start, Ryland, people will die. Maybe even us." She picked up her purse, a small black thing that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "If you decide you're in, meet me tomorrow night, 11 p.m. The old Riverside Library, the one that closed down 5 years ago. Come alone. Tell no one. And Ryland?" She paused, her hand on my arm, her touch cold through my shirt. "Destroy that photograph before you leave this coffee shop. Memorize it, but destroy it. They can't know you've seen it yet." And then she was gone, weaving through the tables and out the door, disappearing into the autumn evening like smoke in wind. I sat back down heavily, my legs suddenly weak. The drink she'd ordered for me sat untouched, the ice melting, diluting whatever she'd known I would want. I looked at the photograph again. Felix. Vincent Kellaway. The Meridian Circle's symbol. Then I pulled out my lighter, the one I'd quit smoking to keep but carried anyway, and I watched the photograph burn. The flames consumed Felix's smile first. The Riverside Library had been condemned in 2020 after they'd found black mold in the walls and asbestos in the ceiling. It sat on the edge of the warehouse district, a Victorian-era building with gargoyles and Gothic windows that had once been beautiful and was now just haunted. I arrived at 10:47 p.m., 13 minutes early, because punctuality was the only thing I could control. The street was empty except for a few parked cars that looked like they'd been abandoned years ago. Security lights flickered overhead, throwing shadows that moved when nothing was there to cast them. The front door was boarded up, but Vesper had said to come to the east entrance. I found it down an alley that smelled like rain and rust, a service door painted green that had faded to the color of old bruises. It opened when I pushed it. Inside, the library was a cathedral of rot. Bookcases stood like tombstones, empty or filled with water-damaged volumes that had bloomed with mold. The circulation desk had collapsed in on itself. Moonlight filtered through broken windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like ghosts. You came. I spun around. Vesper emerged from behind one of the bookcases, wearing black now, practical clothes that made her look like she was ready for war. Her hair was pulled back, and without the theatrical lighting of the coffee shop, I could see she was younger than I'd thought. Maybe 30, maybe younger.
You thought I wouldn't?
I thought you might choose comfort over truth, she said simply. Most people do. It's easier to believe in suicide than murder. Simpler to grieve than to fight. You don't know me very well. Don't I? Vesper pulled out a tablet from her bag and tapped the screen. It glowed blue in the darkness. Ryland Joseph Thorne, 34 years old. Corporate attorney at Mercer & Associates for the past 6 years. Divorced from Simone Castellano 3 years ago. No children. No pets. You live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Pearl District. You order Thai food every Wednesday and pizza every Saturday. You see a therapist named Dr. Helena Moreau every other Tuesday. You haven't dated anyone seriously since the divorce. You downloaded 3 dating apps last month and matched with 47 people but only messaged 12 of them. And you swiped right on me because my profile quote reminded you of something Felix used to say. I felt violated. Exposed. How do you— The same way they know everything, Vesper interrupted. Data. Digital footprints. The modern world has made privacy obsolete, Ryland. Every search, every purchase, every message, every location your phone pings. It all creates a map of who you are. And the Meridian Circle has been drawing that map for everyone who matters in this city. She turned the tablet toward me. On the screen was a complex web of connections, lines connecting names and faces and organizations. It looked like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. This is what Felix discovered, Vesper said. The Meridian Circle has infiltrated every major institution in the city. Police, government, courts, media, business. They're not just a secret society. They're the infrastructure. And they maintain control through information. Blackmail. Everyone who's anyone has secrets, and the Circle knows them all. How? I asked, even though I was starting to suspect the answer. Vesper zoomed in on one section of the web. At the center was a name: Ecosystems. Ecosystems is a data analytics company that provides services to most of the major corporations and government agencies in the city, she explained. On paper, they do market research, predictive modeling, that sort of thing. But what they're really doing is harvesting data. Everything. From everyone. Social media, financial records, medical files, security cameras, smart home devices, phones, computers, everything. And then they're using AI to analyze it all, to find patterns, to predict behavior, to uncover secrets. My stomach turned. That's not legal. It's completely legal, Vesper said bitterly. People agree to it every day. Every time you click "I agree" without reading the terms of service. Every time you use a free app or service. You're giving them permission to take your data. And even when you're not, they're taking it anyway, through backdoors and partnerships and hacks that no one ever reports. She pulled up another file. This one showed financial records. Millions of dollars flowing between accounts. Ecosystems is owned by the Meridian Circle. It's their weapon. And Felix discovered that they're not just using this data for blackmail. They're using it for something worse. What could be worse than blackmail? Vesper looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met her, I saw fear in her eyes. They're predicting crimes before they happen, she said quietly. Identifying people who are likely to become problems. Whistleblowers, activists, journalists, anyone who might threaten their control. And then they're eliminating them, making it look like accidents or natural causes, or, in Felix's case, suicide.
The air in the library felt thin, insufficient. That's impossible. Is it? Vesper challenged. Think about it, Ryland. How many strange deaths have there been in this city in the past 5 years? How many journalists who died in car accidents? How many activists who suddenly overdosed?
How many politicians who had heart attacks at 45? Felix had compiled a list. 73 people in 5 years. All of them were investigating something related to the circle. All of them died right before they could expose what they'd found. She showed me the list. I recognized some of the names from news reports. Tragedies, unfortunate coincidences. Except they weren't coincidences at all. Felix was number 74, Vesper said softly. And if they know you're looking into this, you'll be 75. I should have been terrified. Maybe I was. But underneath the fear was something hotter, sharper. Rage. Show me the video, I said. The one Felix sent you. Vesper hesitated. Once you watch it, you're committed. You can't unknow what you'll learn. Show me. She nodded and pulled up the file. Felix's face filled the screen, and seeing him again, alive and moving and talking, felt like being stabbed and hugged at the same time. Vesper, he said on the video, and his voice was exactly as I remembered it. If you're watching this, I'm probably dead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I got you involved in this. But you need to know the truth. He looked off camera for a moment, like he was checking to make sure he was alone. The Meridian Circle is real. They run everything. And I've found proof. Ecosystems is their operation, and they're using it to create what they call the Predictive Elimination Protocol, PEP. It's an AI system that analyzes everyone in the city and identifies threats. Political threats, economic threats, social threats. Anyone who might disrupt their control. And then they eliminate them. Felix held up a flash drive. Everything's on here. Financial records, internal communications, the algorithm itself. Names of everyone involved. It's enough to bring them down. But Vesper, they know I have it. They've been following me for days. I've tried to get this to the media, to the police, but everyone I've reached out to is either part of the circle or too scared to help. He leaned closer to the camera, and I could see the fear on his face, the exhaustion. I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to reach out to Ryland, my brother. I know we haven't been close lately. I know he's tired of saving me. But he's the only person I trust absolutely. He's the only one who's always been there, even when I didn't deserve it. If something happens to me, please, find him. Tell him everything. Tell him I'm sorry I didn't answer when he called last week. Tell him I love him. Tell him. The video cut off abruptly. I stared at the blank screen, tears streaming down my face. He tried to call you that night, Vesper said gently. 17 times. He needed your help, but by the time you would have listened to his messages, they'd already gotten to him. Why didn't you go to the police? I asked, my voice breaking. I tried, Vesper said. 3 times. Each time, within 24 hours, I'd get a message. A photo of me walking to my car. A note under my door. A call from a blocked number telling me to stop asking questions. They were warning me, showing me they could get to me anytime they wanted. So I stopped. I waited. And I watched you, Ryland, trying to figure out if you were strong enough to finish what Felix started. And am I? I asked bitterly. Strong enough? I don't know yet, Vesper admitted. But you're here. That's something. She closed the tablet and looked at me directly. Here's what we need to do. Vincent Kellaway, the man in the photograph with Felix, is hosting a fundraiser tomorrow night at his estate. 500 guests, all the city's elite, all the circle's members. It's invitation only, heavily secured, the perfect opportunity for you to get inside their world. I don't have an invitation. No, Vesper agreed. But Simone does. My blood turned to ice. My ex-wife? What does she have to do with this? Simone works in public relations, doesn't she? Specifically, she works for Kellaway's campaign. She'll be at the fundraiser. And if you ask her, if you play it right, she'll bring you as her +1. I shook my head violently. No, I'm not involving Simone in this. If these people are as dangerous as you say, she's already involved, Vesper cut me off. Ryland, Simone has been working for Kellaway for 8 months. She's been to his estate dozens of times. She's met with circle members. She knows things, even if she doesn't realize what she knows. What would you do if you discovered everyone around you was connected to something evil? Would you push them away to protect them, or pull them closer to save them? Drop your answer in the comments. You want me to use her, I said flatly. I want you to survive, Vesper corrected. And that means getting inside Kellaway's estate, accessing his private office, and finding the master server where Ecosystems stores its data. Felix's flash drive has the encryption keys we'll need, but we need physical access to copy the files. And you need an invitation to get through the door. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse. Simone and I hadn't spoken in 6 months, not since she'd sent me the final divorce papers. Our marriage had ended badly, a slow deterioration caused by my grief over Felix and her frustration with my inability to move forward. But if I didn't do this, Felix's death would remain unsolved. His killers would remain free, and I'd spend the rest of my life knowing I'd had a chance to get justice, and I'd been too afraid to take it. Fine, I said. I'll talk to Simone, but if anything happens to her, nothing will happen to her, Vesper promised. Not if we're careful, not if we're smart. She handed me a small device that looked like a USB drive. This is a data cloner. Once you're in Kellaway's office, plug this into any computer connected to his network. It'll copy everything automatically. 30 seconds, that's all you need. Can you do that? I closed my fist around the device. It was warm from being in Vesper's pocket. I can do it, I said. Good. Vesper moved toward the door, then paused. Ryland, Felix talked about you all the time. He said you were the better half, the one who had his life together, the one who made the right choices. He was proud of you, even when he was disappointing you. Then why didn't he tell me what he was doing? I asked. Why didn't he trust me with this? Vesper smiled sadly. Because he knew you'd try to stop him. And he knew stopping would have been the smart thing to do. Felix was never very good at smart choices, but he was very good at brave ones. She slipped out the door, leaving me alone in the ruined library with ghosts and dust and the weight of what I'd just agreed to do. I pulled out my phone and stared at Simone's contact information. My thumb hovered over the call button. 3 years since the divorce. 6 months since we'd last spoken. A lifetime since we'd been happy. But Felix needed me. And Felix was dead because I hadn't answered when he'd called. I pressed the button. Simone answered on the 3rd ring, her voice thick with sleep. Ryland, what's wrong? It's almost midnight. I need to see you, I said. Tomorrow. It's important. There was a long pause. I could hear her moving, sitting up in bed probably, turning on a light. "This better not be about us," she warned. "I told you, I've moved on. I'm seeing someone." "It's not about us," I said. "It's about Felix." Another pause, longer this time. Simone had liked Felix, had mourned him when he died. "What about Felix?" "I can't tell you over the phone," I said. "Please, Simone. I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything, but this is important. Life and death important." I could hear her breathing, thinking, deciding whether to hang up or help me. Finally, "Noon tomorrow, the cafe on Morrison, the one we used to go to." "And Ryland? This better actually be important." "It is," I promised. "Thank you." She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there in the darkness of the abandoned library, holding my phone, feeling like I'd just set something irreversible in motion. Outside, the city hummed with its normal nighttime energy. Cars passed. People left in distant bars. The world continued its ordinary rotation. But I knew the truth now. Underneath the ordinary, there was something dark and ancient and patient. The Meridian Circle. And they'd killed my brother. Tomorrow, I'd take the first step toward destroying them. Tomorrow, I'd become the threat Felix had been. Tomorrow, I'd either save everyone or doom us all. I walked out of the library and into the October night, and I didn't look back. Simone looked different. Happier, maybe. Or maybe just more at peace. Her hair was shorter, cut into a sharp bob that framed her face. She wore a burgundy blazer that looked expensive, professional. The kind of thing you wore when you had your life together. She'd always been beautiful, but success had made her luminous. I felt underdressed in my jeans and jacket, like I'd shown up to the wrong party. Again. "You look good," I said as I slid into the booth across from her. "Don't do that," Simone replied, not unkindly. "Don't start with pleasantries. You said this was about Felix. So talk." The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, which was what I'd wanted. Busy meant anonymous. Busy meant no one would notice our conversation. I'd rehearsed this 100 times on the drive over. How to tell her without telling her everything. How to ask for what I needed without putting her in danger. But sitting across from her now, looking at the woman I'd once loved and lost because I couldn't let go of grief, all my careful words evaporated. "What if Felix didn't kill himself?" I asked quietly. Simone's expression hardened. "Ryland, we've been through this. The autopsy, the evidence, his history with depression. What if someone made it look like suicide?" I interrupted. "What if he was murdered because of something he'd discovered?" Simone set down her coffee cup slowly. "Where is this coming from?" "I met someone," I said. "Someone who knew Felix. Someone who's been investigating his death. And they have evidence, Simone. Real evidence that the Meridian Circle killed him." "The Meridian Circle," Simone repeated flatly. "The urban legend? The secret society that supposedly runs the city?" "It's not a legend," I said. "It's real. And Felix found proof. He was going to expose them, and they killed him to keep him quiet." Simone leaned back, studying me with an expression I knew too well. It was the same look she'd given me when I'd told her I wanted to empty our savings to pay for another one of Felix's rehabilitation programs. The look that said she loved me, but didn't trust my judgment. "Ryland," she said carefully, "I know you miss Felix. I know his death was hard on you. But this sounds like what? Like I'm crazy? Like I'm having another breakdown?" "Like you're looking for someone to blame besides yourself,"
Simone said gently. And I get it. Survivor's guilt is real. But Felix had problems, Ryland. He'd attempted suicide before. The pills in his system were his own prescription. There was no evidence of foul play. Because they're good at making it look natural, I insisted. That's their whole system. They identify threats and eliminate them in ways that look like accidents or suicides. They've done it 73 times in the past 5 years. Simone rubbed her temples like I was giving her a headache. Who told you this? This person you met? Her name is Vesper. She was Felix's girlfriend. She has video evidence, financial records, everything. And did it occur to you, Simone asked, that this woman might be manipulating you? That she might have her own agenda? I'd considered that.
Of course I'd considered that. But the photograph had been real. The video of Felix had been real. The fear in his voice had been real. Just tell me one thing, I said. Vincent Kellaway, your boss. What do you know about him? Simone's expression shifted, became guarded. He's a good man. He's trying to clean up this city, restore integrity to public office. Does he ever mention the Meridian Circle? No, Simone said firmly. And if you're about to tell me he's part of some conspiracy, I'm leaving. I'm not telling you anything, I said quickly. I'm asking you to help me find out the truth. You're going to his fundraiser tomorrow night, right? At his estate? Understanding dawned in Simone's eyes, followed quickly by anger. No, absolutely not. I just need to get inside, I pressed. Just as your +1. You don't have to do anything else. I just need to see... See what, Ryland? See if you can find evidence to support your conspiracy theory? See if you can validate your need to believe Felix was murdered instead of accepting that he made a choice? He called me 17 times that night, I said, my voice breaking. 17 times, Simone. He needed help, and I didn't answer. But if he was murdered, if he was reaching out because he was in danger, then maybe I can still do something. Maybe I can still save him. You can't save him, Simone said, not cruelly, but definitively. He's gone, Ryland. He's been gone for 7 years. And breaking into my boss's office at a charity fundraiser isn't going to bring him back. She started to gather her things, preparing to leave. I know about ecosystems, I said desperately. Simone froze. I know Kellaway's campaign uses them for data analytics, I continued. I know you've probably had meetings with them, and I know they're doing things that aren't in any official report. Simone sat back down slowly, her face pale. What do you know? Tell me I'm wrong, I challenged. Tell me Ecosystems is just a normal data analytics company. Tell me you haven't noticed anything strange about the information they provide. Tell me you haven't wondered how they know things they shouldn't know. Simone didn't say anything for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. There was an incident, she admitted. 3 months ago. We were planning a press conference, and Ecosystems sent over a report that included personal information about some of the journalists who'd be attending. Not just professional information, personal details. Marital problems, financial difficulties, health issues. Things that weren't public record. What did you do? I asked my supervisor about it. She said it was standard opposition research, that campaigns need to know who they're dealing with. But it felt wrong. It felt invasive. Simone looked at me directly. But that doesn't mean there's a murder conspiracy, Ryland. It means there's a company with questionable ethics. There's a difference. Then help me prove it, I said. Let me come to the fundraiser. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. I'll leave you alone. I'll get the therapy you've been telling me I need. But if I'm right, if there's even a chance I'm right, don't you want to know? Simone closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. I loved Felix too, she said. He was family. When he died, I mourned him just like you did. But Rylan, grief makes us see patterns that aren't there. It makes us create narratives that give meaning to senseless loss. Are you sure you're not doing that now? I'm sure, I said, even though I wasn't. Even though doubt gnawed at me constantly. Please, Simone. One night. That's all I'm asking. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd refuse. But finally, she nodded once. One condition, she said. You don't do anything illegal. You don't break into any offices. You don't steal anything. You attend the fundraiser like a normal guest, you network, you eat the expensive catered food, and then you go home. Agreed? I should have agreed, should have lied, should have told her whatever she needed to hear. But we'd built our marriage on honesty, even when it hurt. And even though that marriage had failed, I couldn't bring myself to lie to her now. I can't promise that, I said. I'm sorry. Simone laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. At least you're honest about it. Fine. Come to the fundraiser. Be my +1. But Ryland, when this is over, when you realize you're chasing ghosts, I want you to promise me you'll talk to Dr. Moreau. Really talk to her. Because this, whatever this is, it's not healthy. Deal, I said. We shook hands like business associates instead of people who used to sleep in the same bed, who used to know each other's dreams and fears and the exact way to make coffee the other person liked. The fundraiser starts at 7, Simone said as she stood to leave. I'll text you the details. Wear a tuxedo. It's formal. She walked away without looking back, and I sat alone in the cafe booth, wondering what I'd just set in motion. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You did well. Now comes the hard part. Don't lose your nerve. V. Vesper was watching. Had probably been watching the whole time. The thought should have comforted me, knowing I had backup. Instead, it made me feel like a puppet on strings I couldn't see. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I retrieved my tuxedo from the back of my closet, where it had been hanging since the last wedding I'd attended. I practiced looking casual, confident, like I belonged at elite fundraisers. I memorized everything Vesper had told me about Kellaway's estate layout, and I tried not to think about Felix, about his last night, about the 17 calls I hadn't answered, tried and failed. That night, I dreamed I was back in Felix's apartment, finding his body again. But this time, when I turned him over, he was alive. His eyes opened, and he said, "Why didn't you answer, Rye? I needed you." "I know," I said in the dream. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Then finish it," Felix said. "Finish what I started. Promise me." "I promise," I said. And I woke up at 3:47 a.m. exactly, my witching hour, with tears on my face and Felix's voice still echoing in my ears. Kellaway's estate sat on 20 acres of manicured grounds on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by walls that looked medieval and gates that looked expensive. Security was everywhere, disguised as valets and caterers and garden staff. But I'd spent enough time in courtrooms to recognize law enforcement bearing when I saw it. The fundraiser was already in full swing when Simone and I arrived. Her hand rested formally in the crook of my elbow, and we moved through the crowd like we still did this sort of thing together. Like we still fit. "Smile," Simone murmured as we approached the entrance. "And remember, you're here as my guest. Try not to act like you're casing the place." Too late for that. I'd already identified 6 security cameras, 3 guards trying to blend in with the guests, and 2 potential exit routes.
The estate's interior was obscenely beautiful. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. Servers circulated with champagne and canapes. A string quartet played Mozart in one corner. Everyone looked rich, powerful, untouchable. These were the city's elite. And somewhere among them were members of the Meridian Circle, people who'd ordered Felix's death, people who'd killed 73 others. I felt rage burning in my chest, hot and acidic. "There's Vincent," Simone said, guiding me toward a cluster of people near the grand staircase. "Come on, I'll introduce you." Vincent Calloway, in person, looked exactly like his campaign photos. Silver hair, strong jaw, expensive suit, politician's smile that showed all his teeth. He radiated charisma and trustworthiness in equal measure.
Looking at him, I understood why people wanted to vote for him. He looked like someone who could fix things. But I'd seen the photograph. I knew what he really was. "Simone!" Calloway greeted her warmly, kissing both her cheeks. "You look radiant. And this must be your guest?" "My ex-husband, Ryland," Simone said smoothly. "He's an attorney at Mercer and Associates. Ryland, this is Vincent Calloway." I shook his hand. His grip was firm, confident. His eyes assessed me in a fraction of a second, categorizing, dismissing me as unimportant. Good. I wanted to be unimportant. Unimportant meant unthreatening. "Pleasure," I said. "I've been following your campaign. Your platform on justice reform is impressive." "Thank you," Calloway said, already scanning the room for more important people to talk to. "We're trying to build a city where everyone feels safe, where justice is blind and corruption has no place to hide." The irony was so thick I almost choked on it. "If you'll excuse me," Calloway continued, "I see the commissioner has arrived. Simone, we'll catch up later?" "Of course," Simone said. He moved away, bodyguards materializing from nowhere to flank him. "See?" Simone whispered. "Perfectly normal fundraiser. Rich people donating money to a political campaign. No murder conspiracies anywhere." But I'd seen something in that brief interaction. A moment when Calloway's eyes had met someone's across the room. Just a glance, lasting less than a second. But I'd seen recognition there. Communication. I followed Calloway's gaze to a woman standing near the French doors that led to the garden. She was older, maybe 60, with white hair and a black dress that probably cost as much as my car. She wore a pendant around her neck, a silver circle with geometric patterns. The Meridian Circle's symbol. "I need to use the restroom," I told Simone. She gave me a warning look. "Ryland, just the restroom," I promised. "I'm not breaking into anything. Scout's honor." Simone sighed. "Down the hall, second door on the left." I kissed her cheek, surprised when she didn't pull away, and headed toward the hallway. But I didn't go to the restroom. Vesper had shown me blueprints of the estate. Calloway's private office was on the second floor, east wing, third door. The main staircase would be too obvious, too watched. But there was a service staircase near the kitchen that staff used. I made my way through the mansion, nodding politely at the few people I passed, trying to look like I belonged. The kitchen was chaos, caterers moving in coordinated frenzy. No one noticed as I slipped past them and up the narrow staircase. The second floor was quieter, dimly lit, clearly off limits to guests. My heart hammered as I moved down the hallway, counting doors. Third one. Ornate wooden door with a modern electronic lock. I pulled out the device Vesper had given me.
a small electromagnetic key that would supposedly override the lock. I pressed it against the sensor, held my breath, and heard a satisfying click. The door opened. Calloway's office was everything you'd expect from a man preparing to run a city. Massive desk, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens, walls lined with books and awards and photographs of Calloway with various dignitaries and celebrities. And on the desk, a computer, screen dark, but power light glowing. I moved quickly, pulling out the data cloner Vesper had given me. My hands shook as I plugged it into the computer's USB port. The screen lit up automatically. A login prompt appeared, but before I could panic, the cloner bypassed it. Lines of code scrolling across the screen too fast to read. Accessing Network Corporation. Files. Estimated time, 32 seconds. 32 seconds. I could do 32 seconds. I forced myself to breathe, to count, to not think about what would happen if someone walked in. 20 seconds. 15. The door behind me clicked. I spun around, my heart stopping completely.
The woman with the meridian circle pendant stood in the doorway. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Her eyes were ice blue, intelligent, assessing. "Lost?" she asked, her voice smooth and cultured. I was looking for the restroom," I stammered, moving slightly to block the computer from view. "The guest restrooms are on the first floor," she said. "This is Vincent's private office. You shouldn't be up here." "I know, I'm sorry. I got turned around." I laughed nervously, playing the part of embarrassed party guest. "Big house." The woman didn't smile. She stepped into the room, and I saw she had a phone in her hand. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ryland Thorne. I'm here with Simone Castellano. From Vincent's campaign staff?" The woman's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition. "Ryland Thorne," she repeated slowly. "Felix's brother." My blood turned to ice. Behind me, I heard a soft chime. The data cloner had finished. But I couldn't turn around, couldn't remove it, not while she was watching. "You knew Felix?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I knew of him," she corrected. "He worked for Ecosystems briefly, before his unfortunate death. Such a tragedy. Suicide, wasn't it?" The way she said it, so casual, so knowing, made me want to lunge at her. But I forced myself to stay calm. "Yes," I said. "Suicide." "Terrible thing," she continued, moving closer. "The burden of mental illness. Felix struggled with demons, didn't he? Sometimes people make choices we can't understand. Choices that devastate those they leave behind." She was close enough now that I could smell her perfume, something floral and cloying. "I should get back to the party," I said, trying to step around her. Her hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "Not yet. I think Vincent would want to know we have an uninvited guest poking around his private office. Don't you?" Time slowed down. I could remove the data cloner, but she'd see it. I could try to run, but she was blocking the door, and she had a phone, and security would be here in seconds. And then, like an answered prayer, Simone's voice called from the hallway. "Ryland, where did you go?" The woman's grip loosened fractionally. I yanked my wrist free and moved toward the door just as Simone appeared. "There you are," Simone said.
but her smile faltered when she saw the woman. "Mrs. Chen, I didn't realize you'd arrived." "Mrs. Chen." I filed the name away. "Just having a conversation with your guest," Mrs. Chen said smoothly. "He seems to have wandered into the private areas of the house." Simone's cheeks flushed. "Ryland, I told you the restrooms were on the first floor." "My mistake," I said, taking Simone's arm. "Mrs. Chen was just explaining that to me." "Perhaps next time you should keep better track of your plus ones," Mrs. Chen said to Simone, but her eyes stayed on me. "You never know what trouble they might get into." It was a threat, clear as crystal. "Of course," Simone said stiffly. "It won't happen again." She practically dragged me down the hallway and back toward the service stairs. Once we were out of earshot, she rounded on me. "What the hell were you thinking?" she hissed. "That was Evelyn Chen. She's on the board of directors for half the corporations in this city. If she tells Vincent you were snooping around his office, I could lose my job. Or worse." "I know, I'm sorry," I said. "I really did get lost." "Bullshit," Simone snapped. "You were looking for something. Your conspiracy evidence." "Damn it, Ryland, I told you not to do anything illegal." We'd reached the first floor again. The party continued around us, oblivious to the small drama that had just played out upstairs. "I need to leave," I said. "Now. And you should probably come with me." "What? Why?" "Because if Mrs. Chen is who I think she is, she's going to tell Kellaway I was in his office. And if Kellaway is who I think he is,
They're going to check his computer and find evidence someone was accessing his files. Understanding and fear dawned in Simone's eyes. "Oh my God, what did you do?" "What I had to do," I said. "Come on, let's go. We can talk in the car." But before we could make it to the exit, the lights went out. All of them. The entire estate plunged into darkness. For a moment, there was silence, confusion. Then someone screamed. Emergency lights flickered on, dim and red, casting everything in a hellish glow. "Stay calm," Kellaway's voice boomed through the house, amplified somehow. "We've experienced a power outage. Security is investigating. Please remain where you are." But I knew this wasn't a power outage. This was Vesper. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. "Fire exit. East wing. 90 seconds. Move." "Ryland," Simone said, her voice shaking. "What's happening?" "Trust me," I said, gripping her hand. "We need to go. Right now." I pulled her through the crowd of confused, frightened guests. People were taking out their phones, using them as flashlights. Security was trying to manage the situation, but in the darkness and confusion, we slipped past them. The fire exit was where Vesper had said it would be. I pushed through it, and cool night air hit my face. Behind us, I could hear shouts, orders, the sound of a situation spiraling out of control. We ran across the lawn, away from the lights, toward the tree line where Vesper had told me a car would be waiting. And there it was. A black sedan with dark windows and an engine running. The back door opened. "Get in," Vesper's voice commanded from inside. "Who is that?" Simone demanded, pulling back. "Someone who's trying to keep us alive," I said. "Please, Simone, trust me one more time." Behind us, flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Security was coming. Simone looked at me, at the car, at the approaching lights, making a choice. Then she got in. I climbed in after her, and the car was already moving before I'd closed the door. "What the hell is happening?" Simone demanded. "Who are you? Why did you cut the power? Why—" "Because they were about to kill him," Vesper said calmly from the driver's seat. "And probably you too, once they realized you'd brought him." She turned onto a dark road,
Headlights off, driving by moonlight. Mrs. Chen confirmed who Ryland is 30 seconds after you left that office. Kellaway's security ran his name. They found his connection to Felix. They were coming for him, Simone. 2 men with instructions to escort him outside and make sure he had an unfortunate accident on the drive home. Simone turned to look at me, her face pale in the darkness. "This is real," she whispered. "Your conspiracy. It's real." "Yes," I said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I got you involved." "Did you get it?" Vesper asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "The data?" I realized with a start that the cloner was still in my pocket. In the chaos of everything, I'd forgotten I'd managed to grab it before running. I pulled it out. In the faint glow of the dashboard lights, I could see it was still intact. "I got it," I confirmed. Vesper's smile was sharp and triumphant. "Then it was worth it. Everything we need to destroy the Meridian Circle is on that drive. Names, transactions, the predictive elimination protocol algorithm. Everything." "And what about us?" Simone asked, her voice rising. "They know who we are. They know where we live. They'll come for us." "Yes," Vesper agreed. "They will. Which is why you're both coming with me. I have a safe house, somewhere they can't find us, at least not immediately. We'll have maybe 48 hours before they track us down. Maybe less." "48 hours to do what?" I asked. Vesper's eyes met mine in the mirror, and I saw the same rage I felt burning there. "To end this," she said. "Once and for all." We drove into the night.
3 fugitives fleeing from the most powerful organization in the city, carrying the only evidence that could bring them down. And in my pocket, the data cloner felt heavier than it had any right to, weighted with the deaths of 74 people and the hope that their killers would finally face justice. Felix's voice echoed in my memory. "Finish it. Promise me." "I promise, brother," I thought. "I promise." The safe house was a cabin 2 hours outside the city, hidden at the end of a dirt road that barely qualified as navigable. No neighbors, no cell service, no connection to the civilized world. Perfect for hiding. Or dying. I wasn't sure which yet. Vesper had supplies stashed. Everything we'd need to survive off-grid for weeks if necessary. Canned food, water, medical supplies, 3 laptops with satellite internet connections that were somehow untraceable. She'd clearly been preparing for this moment for a long time. "Make yourself comfortable," she said as we entered. "Or as comfortable as you can be in a place that smells like mothballs and regret." Simone sat on the worn couch, her expensive dress completely out of place in the rustic setting. She hadn't spoken since we'd left the main highway, processing everything, probably recalibrating her entire understanding of reality. I knew the feeling. I'd been doing it for days now. "Okay," Simone finally said, her voice steady despite everything. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything. And I mean everything." So I did. Vesper and I took turns explaining. The blind date, the photograph, Felix's video, ecosystems, the predictive elimination protocol, the 74 deaths. All of it. Simone listened without interrupting, her expression moving through disbelief to horror to a kind of grim acceptance. When we finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I've been helping them," she finally said. "All this time, I've been working for them, helping Kellaway get elected, helping him look legitimate, trustworthy."
"Oh God, You didn't know," I interrupted. "None of us knew. That's how they work. They hide in plain sight." "But I should have known," Simone insisted. The things ecosystems knew, the information they had. I should have questioned it more. I should have pushed back. Guilt later, Vesper cut in pragmatically. Action now. We have maybe 48 hours before they find us here. We need to figure out what to do with this data. She plugged the cloner into one of the laptops and started pulling up files. The screen filled with documents, spreadsheets, internal communications. Years of evidence. This is everything, Vesper breathed. Financial records showing payments to hitmen disguised as consulting fees. Internal memos discussing which threats needed to be eliminated. The algorithm they used to identify targets. Even communication logs between circle members. Can we give it to the police? Simone asked. Vesper laughed bitterly. Half the police department is on the circle's payroll. Look, here's a file labeled Law Enforcement Assets. 237 officers, including the commissioner, 3 judges, and the district attorney. My stomach sank. Then the media. We give it to journalists. Better, Vesper agreed. But risky. The Circle owns or influences most of the major media outlets in the city. We'd need to find independent journalists, ones who aren't afraid to go up against the most powerful organization in the region. I know someone, Simone said suddenly. Nadia Reeves. She runs an investigative journalism site, completely independent, crowdfunded. She's been trying to expose corruption in city government for years. If anyone would run this story, she would. Can you trust her? I asked. I think so, Simone said. She interviewed me once for a piece on political PR. She was relentless, ethical. If we can get this data to her, she'll know what to do with it. Vesper pulled up Nadia Reeves's website.
It was professional, serious, filled with investigative pieces about topics the mainstream media ignored. Okay, Vesper said. But we can't just email her the files. The Circle monitors electronic communications. We need to deliver them in person. She's based in the city, Simone said. Her office is downtown, near the courthouse. Then we go back, I said. We deliver the files, make sure she understands what she's looking at, and then we disappear until the story breaks. That's the best, worst plan we have, Vesper agreed. We'll go tomorrow morning, early, before the Circle expects us to move. In and out, fast and clean. She started making copies of the data, multiple backups on encrypted drives. Insurance, in case something went wrong. Which, given how everything else had gone, seemed inevitable. I need air, Simone said abruptly, standing up. She walked out onto the cabin's small porch, wrapping her arms around herself against the October cold. I followed her. You okay? I asked. No, she said honestly. My entire life just got turned upside down. My boss is a murderer. My job has been helping cover up dozens of killings. And my ex-husband, who I thought was having a breakdown, was actually right all along about a massive conspiracy. She laughed, but it sounded broken. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't drag me, Simone corrected. I made a choice. When I brought you to that fundraiser, I made a choice. And when I got in that car with you, I made another one. She turned to look at me, and in the moonlight, she looked like the woman I'd married. Before grief had driven a wedge between us. Before Felix's death had made me unavailable, unreachable. For what it's worth, Simone said quietly. I'm sorry too. For leaving when you needed support. For thinking your grief was weakness. For not believing you when you said something was wrong with Felix's death. You had every reason to think I was losing it, I said. I wasn't exactly stable. No, Simone agreed. But you were right, and I should have trusted you anyway. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment, and for the first time in 3 years, the space between us didn't feel like an uncrossable canyon. What happens after this? Simone asked. After we expose them? After the story breaks? I don't know, I admitted. Either we're heroes who brought down a corrupt organization, or we're dead before the first article gets published. Comforting, Simone said dryly. I try. She smiled, genuine this time. You know, if we survive this, maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just coffee. No conspiracies, no murder plots. Just two people who used to know each other, catching up. I'd like that, I said. From inside the cabin, Vesper called out, You two should see this. We went back inside. Vesper had pulled up a specific file, and her face was grim. What is it? I asked. It's a list, Vesper said. Active targets. People the Meridian Circle has identified as threats who are scheduled for elimination. She scrolled down. The list contained 47 names, complete with detailed profiles, risk assessments, and proposed elimination methods. And there, halfway down the list, were 3 names I recognized. Nadia Reeves, Simone Castellano, Ryland Thorne. When was this list compiled? Simone asked, her voice shaking. Vesper checked the timestamp. 2 hours ago. They've already identified all of us as threats. They're planning how to eliminate us. I read my own profile with a kind of detached horror. They'd analyzed my habits, my schedule, my vulnerabilities. They'd determined that the best elimination method was a staged suicide, made to look like I'd finally succumbed to the same depression that had supposedly killed Felix. The symmetry was cruel, poetic, exactly the kind of thing that would make people believe it. They're going to kill us, Simone said. They're going to kill all of us. And they're going to make it look natural. Not if we move first, Vesper said. We have their playbook now. We know their methods. We can stay ahead of them. But I was reading Nadia Reeves's profile, and my blood went cold. They're already moving on her, I said. Look at the timeline. She's scheduled for elimination tomorrow morning. They're going to stage a gas leak in her apartment at 6 a.m. Then we leave now, Vesper said, already moving. We get to her first, warn her, get her somewhere safe. It's past midnight, Simone said. We're 2 hours away. Even if we leave right now, then we drive fast, I interrupted. Because if Nadia Reeves dies tomorrow, there's no one else who published this story. The Circle wins. Felix's death stays unavenged, and we're next on their list. I grabbed my jacket, checking my pockets for the backup drive Vesper had made. Everything we needed to destroy the Meridian Circle was on that tiny piece of technology. One question, Simone said as we headed for the door. If they're this powerful, if they can track us, predict our moves, analyze our every pattern, how are we supposed to stay ahead of them? It was a fair question, and I didn't have a good answer. Because we're not following patterns anymore, Vesper said. We're not being predictable. From now on, we're chaos. We do things they can't predict because we barely know what we're doing ourselves. We survive on improvisation and luck and desperation. That's not a plan, Simone said. No, Vesper agreed. It's not. But it's all we have. We piled into the car, and Vesper took off down the dirt road, driving too fast for safety, but not fast enough for the urgency we all felt. In the back seat, I pulled out my phone. Still no service, but I'd downloaded the files before we'd left the cabin. I read through more of the Meridian Circle's documents, internal communications, strategic plans, and slowly a picture emerged. The Circle had been operating for decades, since the 1960s. It had started as a legitimate civic organization, business leaders and politicians working together to improve the city. But somewhere along the way, it had rotted from the inside. Power had corrupted it. The original ideals had been replaced with the singular goal of maintaining control. And ecosystems was their latest tool, their most effective weapon. In the past 5 years alone, they'd eliminated 74 threats. Journalists, activists, politicians, whistleblowers, anyone who'd gotten too close to the truth. Felix had been number 74, but he'd also been their biggest mistake. Because Felix hadn't worked alone. He'd shared his evidence with Vesper. He'd tried to reach me. He'd planted the seeds of their destruction even as they'd killed him. "I need to tell you something," I said to Vesper as she drove. "About Felix. About the night he died." Vesper glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "I didn't just ignore his calls because I was angry," I continued. "I ignored them because earlier that day, he'd stolen from me. Again. Took money from my account to pay for something he wouldn't explain. And I was tired. Tired of always being the one who saved him. Tired of being his backup plan." Tears burned in my eyes. So when he called that night, I turned off my phone. I decided I was done. I was going to let him handle his own problems for once. And by the time I changed my mind, by the time I went to check on him, it was too late. "He was already dead," Vesper finished softly. "Yeah," I whispered. "And for 7 years, I've lived with the guilt, wondering if I could have saved him if I'd just answered. If I'd been a better brother, a better person." "The money he took," Vesper said, "it was to pay someone at Ecosystems for information. He needed proof of what they were doing, and his source wanted cash. Felix was trying to protect you by not explaining. He didn't want you implicated if things went wrong." I closed my eyes. Of course that's what it had been. "He loved you, Ryland," Vesper continued. "His last thoughts, his last words in that video, they were all about you. About making sure you knew he didn't blame you. About making sure you were okay." "I'm not okay," I said. "I haven't been okay since he died." "None of us are okay," Simone said, reaching back to squeeze my hand. "But we're here. We're still fighting. That's something." We drove in silence for a while, racing through the darkness toward a city that wanted us dead, and a journalist who didn't know her life was about to end unless we reached her first. My phone buzzed suddenly. Impossible. We were still in an area with no service. I looked at the screen. A message from an unknown number. "Turn around. This is your only warning. Come back, and we'll consider this a misunderstanding. Keep going, and you're all dead by sunrise." "They know where we are," I said, showing the message to Vesper. "Then we don't turn around," she said grimly. "We go faster." The speedometer climbed. 90 miles per hour. 100. The car shook, protesting, but Vesper didn't slow down. Behind us, I saw headlights appear in the distance. "We have company," I said. Vesper checked the mirror. Cursed. "Hold on." She took a turn too fast, tires screaming. The headlights followed. "They're going to run us off the road," Simone said, her voice surprisingly calm given the circumstances. "Not if I can help it," Vesper muttered. She'd clearly done this before, driven defensively, evaded pursuit. I wondered again who she really was, what her story was, how she'd become the person willing to take on the Meridian Circle.
But there was no time to ask. The pursuing car was gaining, a massive SUV built for ramming. It pulled alongside us, and I saw the driver's face in the glow of the dashboard lights. Mrs. Chen. She smiled at me through her window, cold and certain. Then her vehicle swerved into ours. Metal shrieked. Our car spun.
Vesper fought for control, somehow keeping us on the road. "Everyone okay?" she shouted. "Define okay," Simone said, but she was alive, conscious, still with us. Mrs. Chen was lining up for another hit. And then, like divine intervention, we crested a hill and saw lights ahead. Not just any lights, a police checkpoint. "Vesper," I said urgently, "are those cops on the Circle's payroll?" "Only one way to find out," she said. She floored it toward the checkpoint, and behind us, Mrs. Chen's SUV suddenly dropped back, disappearing into the darkness. We screeched to a halt at the checkpoint, and officers immediately surrounded us, weapons drawn. "Out of the car! Hands where we can see them!" We complied, moving slowly, carefully. My mind raced, trying to figure out if we'd just been saved or if we'd driven straight into a trap. One of the officers approached, his flashlight beam harsh in my eyes. "Anyone want to explain why you're doing 120 on this highway?" "We're being pursued," Vesper said. "Black SUV, about half a mile back. The driver tried to run us off the road." The officers exchanged glances. One of them radioed for backup, describing Mrs. Chen's vehicle. "We're going to need to see some identification," the officer said. "And you'll need to come with us to give statements." "How long will that take?" I asked, thinking of Nadia Reeves, of the 6 a.m. deadline we were racing against. "As long as it takes," the officer replied. We were escorted to police cruisers, separated, driven to the nearest station. It was 2 a.m. 4 hours until Nadia Reeves's scheduled elimination. 4 hours to figure out if these officers were going to help us or deliver us straight to the Circle. 4 hours to finish what Felix had started. Or 4 hours until we joined the list of 74 dead. The interrogation room smelled like stale coffee and old fear. I'd been sitting there for 30 minutes, watching the clock on the wall tick toward 6 a.m. with excruciating slowness. The door opened. A detective entered, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. Her badge read, Detective Marquez. She sat down across from me, opened a folder, and studied me like I was a particularly interesting specimen. "Ryland Thorne," she said. "Attorney. Clean record. Ex-wife is Simone Castellano, currently employed by Vincent Kellaway's mayoral campaign. Brother Felix Thorne died 7 years ago. Ruled suicide." She looked up. "Want to tell me what you were really doing speeding down that highway tonight?" This was it. The moment of truth. Either Detective Marquez was one of the Circle's assets, and I was about to disappear into the system, or she was clean, and I had a chance to save Nadia Reeves. I made a choice. "I was trying to stop a murder," I said. Marquez's expression didn't change. "Whose murder?" "Nadia Reeves, investigative journalist. The Meridian Circle has her scheduled for elimination at 6 a.m. this morning. They're going to stage a gas leak in her apartment." Now Marquez's eyebrow rose. "The Meridian Circle? The urban legend?" "It's not a legend," I said. "It's real, and they've been killing people for years, including my brother. And I have proof." I pulled out the backup drive from my pocket, setting it on the table between us. "Everything you need to know is on this. Financial records, internal communications,
A list of circle members, details of every elimination they've conducted. But right now, none of that matters as much as saving Nadia Reeves. She has maybe 3.5 hours before they kill her. Marquez stared at the drive, then at me. You know how crazy this sounds? I know exactly how crazy it sounds, I said. But check the drive. Send a unit to Nadia's apartment. If I'm wrong, you can charge me with whatever you want. But if I'm right,
You'll have stopped a murder and exposed the biggest corruption scandal this city has ever seen. Marquez was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up the drive. Wait here, she said. She left. The clock kept ticking. 3 a.m. 3:15 a.m. At 3:30, Marquez returned. Her face was pale. I looked at your files, she said quietly. Just a sample. Financial records showing payments to, well, they look like contract killings disguised as consulting fees. There's documentation of surveillance on dozens of people. And there's a list. She stopped, swallowed. There's a list with my name on it. From 3 years ago, when I was investigating irregularities in the city's budget. She sat down heavily. They were watching me, she continued. They'd classified me as a low-level threat. Decided I wasn't worth eliminating because I didn't have enough evidence to be dangerous. They let me live because I was ineffective. She laughed, but it sounded bitter. All this time, I thought I was doing my job. But they were always 10 steps ahead. We can change that, I said. Right now. We save Nadia Reeves, and we make sure this evidence gets published. The Circle's power comes from secrecy. Once this is exposed, they're done. Marquez nodded slowly, something hardening in her expression. I sent a unit to Reeves's apartment 20 minutes ago. They're evacuating the building and checking for gas leaks. If your timeline is correct, we'll find evidence of tampering. And if we don't? I asked. Then you've got bigger problems than a speeding ticket, Marquez said. But between you and me, I hope you're right. I hope there's finally a way to burn these bastards down. She stood up. Come with me. Your friends are in the next room. You all get to leave, but don't leave town. I'll need full statements from all of you. And Thorne? She paused at the door. I'm sorry about your brother. If what's in these files is true, he was a hero. He was just trying to do the right thing, I said. Like I said, hero. She led me to a conference room where Vesper and Simone were waiting. Both looked exhausted, but alive, and that was enough. Did you... Simone started. I told them everything. I confirmed. Marquez seems clean. She's checking out our story about Nadia. Good, Vesper said. Because I've been thinking, even if we save Nadia, even if she publishes the story, the Circle's members are going to run, destroy evidence, disappear. We need to move faster than they can. What are you suggesting? I asked. We don't wait for a journalist to break the story, Vesper said. We break it ourselves. Right now. We upload everything to the internet, every news site, every social media platform, every email list we can find. We flood the zone, make it impossible to suppress. That's insane, Simone said. And also brilliant. Marquez's phone rang. She answered, listened, her expression shifting from skeptical to shocked. They found it, she said when she hung up. Nadia Reeves's apartment. The gas line had been professionally tampered with, designed to look like a natural leak, but the explosion would have been catastrophic. Would have killed Reeves
and probably 3 other tenants. She looked at us with something like awe. You saved her life. Maybe saved 5 lives. How many more can we save if we expose all of them? I asked. Marquez thought about it. Then she made a decision. Use my computer, she said. You've got unlimited internet access and law enforcement credentials. Upload everything. Make them wish they'd never heard the name Meridian Circle. For the next hour, we worked. Vesper handled the technical aspects, uploading files to dozens of sites simultaneously. Simone wrote a clear, concise explanation of what the documents revealed. I made a video statement explaining who Felix was, how he'd died, and why this mattered. At 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before Nadia Reeves's scheduled elimination, we hit publish. And the world exploded.
Within minutes, the files were trending on every social media platform. News outlets started calling the police station, demanding confirmation. Phones rang constantly. The internet, for all its flaws, proved impossible to censor when the truth was this explosive. By 6:30 a.m., Vincent Kellaway had issued a statement denying everything. By 7 a.m., 3 major Circle members had been arrested. By 8 a.m., the governor had announced a special investigation. By noon, Vincent Kellaway had withdrawn from the mayoral race and gone into hiding. We watched it all from the police station, exhausted and exhilarated, and still not quite believing it was real. It's working, Simone said in disbelief. We're actually doing it. We're bringing them down. Not all of them, Vesper cautioned. Some will escape. Some will reinvent themselves. This kind of corruption doesn't die easily. But it's wounded, I said. Badly wounded. And people know now. They can't operate in the shadows anymore. Marquez entered the conference room, her phone pressed to her ear. When she hung up, she was smiling. Nadia Reeves just called, she said. She wants to interview all of you, says this is the biggest story of her career, and she wants to hear it directly from the sources. We should do it, Simone said. Tell the whole story. Make sure people understand what Felix discovered. I thought about my brother, about the 17 calls I hadn't answered, about 7 years of guilt and grief. This wouldn't bring him back. Nothing would. But it would give his death meaning. It would make sure his sacrifice mattered. Yeah, I said. Let's tell the story. 3 months later, I stood in a cemetery on a cold January morning, looking at Felix's grave. Someone had left fresh flowers, bright yellow against the gray headstone. I thought I'd find you here, a voice said behind me. I turned. Simone stood there, wrapped in a blue coat, her breath clouding in the winter air. I come here sometimes, I admitted, to tell him how things are going, to say the things I didn't say when he was alive. How are things going? Simone asked, moving to stand beside me. Good, I think. 37 Circle members have been indicted. Ecosystems has been shut down. Kellaway's in custody. The city's appointing a special prosecutor to investigate everyone who was involved. And you? Simone asked. How are you? Better, I said honestly. For the first time in 7 years, I don't wake up at 3:47 a.m. feeling guilty. I still miss him, but I don't blame myself anymore. I did what I could. I finished what he started. Simone slipped her hand into mine. We'd been doing this a lot lately, finding our way back to each other, rebuilding what we'd lost. He'd be proud of you, Simone said softly. You saved people, Ryland. Exposed corruption. Changed the city. That's not nothing. No, I agreed. It's not nothing.
My phone buzzed. A text from Vesper. Coffee tomorrow? There's something new I need to tell you about. I smiled. Vesper had become a friend, an ally, someone who understood the weight of what we'd done and what it cost. More conspiracy theories? Simone asked, reading over my shoulder. Probably, I said. But this time, maybe we can actually enjoy the coffee before everything goes sideways. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the winter wind scatter leaves across the graveyard. Felix's grave was quiet, peaceful. The inscription read, Felix Thorne, 1990 to 2018. Beloved brother, friend, truth seeker. I'd had that last part added after everything came out, after the world knew what he'd really been doing. You ready to go? Simone asked. We have that meeting with Nadia about her follow-up article. Yeah, I said. Let's go. But I paused at the grave one more time. I kept my promise, Felix, I whispered. I finished it. You can rest now. The wind picked up, scattering those yellow petals like tiny pieces of sunlight, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt something lift from my chest. A weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to be without it. Forgiveness. From Felix or from myself, I wasn't sure. Maybe it didn't matter. We walked away from the cemetery together, Simone's hand warm in mine, toward a city that was broken but healing, corrupt but fighting back, dark but finally letting in light. The meridian circle's symbol had been a closed loop, perfect and eternal and suffocating. But we'd broken that circle, and in its place, something better could grow. Justice, truth, hope, and the knowledge that sometimes, even against impossible odds, even when you're terrified and outnumbered and sure you're going to fail, you can still win. You can still make things right. You can still save the people who need saving. Even if you couldn't save your brother, you can save everyone else his death might have protected. That's what Felix had done with his last breath, his last action, his last desperate attempt to reach me. He'd saved the city, and I'd made sure everyone knew it. As we drove back toward the city, the skyline rising against the winter sky, I realized I was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in 7 years. What? Simone asked, noticing. Nothing, I said. Just, we did it. We actually did it. Yeah, Simone agreed, squeezing my hand. We did. And in that moment, with the woman I'd lost and found again beside me, with justice finally served and truth finally told, with the weight of guilt finally lifted and the burden of unfinished business finally completed, I felt something I hadn't felt since before Felix died. Peace. Not perfect peace, not the absence of pain or the erasure of loss, but the peace that comes from knowing you fought when it mattered. You stood up when you could have stayed silent. You answered the call, even if it came 7 years too late. The blind date who knew every secret I never told anyone had led me to this moment, had led me home. And Felix, wherever he was finally free. We both were.